Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I was living at home with Mom. At least I'm living on my own now. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new filming location, my lovely little college dorm room. Yeah, I wanted Van Gogh Starry Night, but this is pretty, it'll do. So now that I've introduced my new filming location, let's get to talking about the clown that blew Robert De Niro's brains out, the deranged murderer that DC turned into a superhero, and child snuff film directors.
On this episode of Best of the Worst.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Okay, my dear, why don't you go and fight Batman while I make a daring escape?
I usually only make sandwiches.
There's something you forgot.
So let me start off by explaining what I like and what I think is interesting about both the Joker and Harley Quinn as characters. As unfortunately, after all of the different iterations of them over the past 80 years or so, saying what makes the characters who they are is like saying what makes something funny and what makes something scary. It's just completely subjective at this point. On the topic of the Joker, he's probably one of my favorite characters in all of fiction, and the way I like to see him is essentially as three different characters molded together. And that's a flamboyant, charismatic showman, a sadistic, murderous piece of shit who just relishes in seeing society fall apart, and at the same time, just a sad, pathetic loser who's desperately seeking attention from others. The only problem with the Joker, which is the problem with pretty much any comic book character like him, is that I'm only a big fan of him if he has a healthy balance between each of his unique characteristics. For instance, I can only get behind a version of the Riddler if he's at the same time a know-it-all egghead, a DIY kidnapper, and an insecure loner with an obsessive-compulsive need to prove that he's smarter than everyone else. And if there's not a healthy balance between each of these traits, he just doesn't feel like the Riddler to me, even if it is an interesting character. Probably my three favorite iterations of Joker over the years come from Batman the Animated Series, the 1988 graphic novel The Killing Joke,
You got canceled!
and Todd Phillips' 2019 film Joker, because they all consistently capture his three different personas that I just mentioned.
You're dumber than you look, Bats. It's not the trophy that matters, it's the title. I am the greatest clown this dismal burg has ever seen. What would the common folk do without my pranks and antics?
Let's find out.
Up, and away! Spit and Polish, my attorneys. They persuaded your partner to sign over the deed about an hour ago. The property's already mine. I can see that you're happy about that. Now, I must dash. There's equipment to rent, plus workers to hire, and of course, I need to secure my main attraction. Do feel free to stick around.
I heard this song on the radio the other day. And the guy was singing that his name was Carnival.
Arthur,
which is crazy. Because that's my clown name, Work. Until a little while ago, it was like nobody ever saw me. Even I didn't know if I really existed.
And obviously, this is wildly unpopular, but I'm just not the biggest fan of Heath Ledger's Joker or the version portrayed by one of my favorite writers and artists, Lee Bermejo, as they're just not goofy and funny enough. I mean, as bleak and heart-wrenching as Joaquin Phoenix's Joker was, he at least had a nice dose of zaniness going for him.
Is that part of your new act, Arthur? If your dancing doesn't do the trick, you're just gonna shoot yourself?
Why don't you ask Randall about it? It was his gun.
What?
I still owe you for that, don't I?
What the fuck are you talking about? Stop talking out of your ass, Art.
Oh, no! I forgot to punch out.
Hear me call, hear my name, Carnival.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them? Come here. Hey. Look at me. So I had a wife, beautiful, like you, who tells me I worry too much, who tells me I ought to smile more, who gambles and gets in deep with the sharks. Hey, one day they carve her face. We have no money for surgeries. She can't take it. I just want to see her smile again. I just want her to know that I don't care about the scars. So, I stick a razor in my mouth and do this to myself. And you know what? She can't stand the sight of me.
Now, as for what I like about Harley Quinn, that's all, goodbye! Okay, I'm not really going to stop the video there. Although I legitimately don't find Harley Quinn that interesting, especially not on the level that a Batman villain normally is interesting, which is on a psychological level. Although I guess there are two minor instances of her being psychologically complex, and those are really the only two things that I actually like about her. I think the biggest problem with Harley Quinn is that her connection to Joker is the one legitimately fascinating thing about her, and once you strip that away, you're left with her silly antics and lunacy. I mean, you get overindulgent crap like Harley's Holiday, which basically pleasures itself to her wacky spontaneousness, not to mention Batman and Harley Quinn and the Harley Quinn TV series. Now, because this just isn't a particularly mature way to handle a Batman villain, relatively speaking, There are two things that Harley represents that I think are legitimately fascinating on a psychological level. And those are A, when a person enters a career or job position that they are anything but fit for.
Well, I've always had an attraction for extreme personalities. They're more exciting, more challenging.
And more high profile?
You can't deny there's an element of glamour to these super criminals.
And B, when a deeply unwell individual forms a romantic bond and obsession with a mass murderer. For instance, just take all of the online communities of people who are obsessed with the 2 Columbine shooters. I mean, these people do exist and it is legitimately concerning. I mean, just take the animated series episode of Harley Quinn, which is a much better version of Harley's Holiday, by the way, where, sure, we do get some silly antics with her, but at the same time, we also get lots of glimpses into just how unpredictable, obsessive, and oblivious she is. I mean, just take the moment where she totally shrugs off Batman's moral questions regarding Joker's atrocities.
Charming. Especially these monitors. Between the cops, City Hall, and the mayor's office, Joker has the whole city wired.
He's a genius.
What's the attraction, Gwen? This sick infatuation with the Joker.
Look, Bats. When I was a doctor, I was always listening to other people's problems. Then I met Mr. J, who listened to me for a change and made everything fun.
You think it's funny when he hurts people?
It's just a joke.
Hope you're still laughing when it's your turn.
Well, here goes nothing. Time to talk about these 2 clowns' relationship. So, let me start off by talking about the complex morality of Batman villains, as you often understand them better through their backstories, but you're not supposed to sympathize with them per se. For instance, take the famous animated series episode Heart of Ice, where Mr. Freeze is a tragic villain who's just out to save his wife, but at the same time, his actions do not justify his means, and he's still one of the main villains.
Tonight I mean to pay back the man who ruined my life. Our lives.
Even if you have to kill everyone in the building to do it?
Think of it, Batman. To never again walk on a summer's day with a hot wind in your face and a warm hand to hold. Oh yes, I'd kill for that.
I honestly get the feeling that due to how childlike and lovable Harley is, many Batman fans and writers have completely swapped out her complex morality for unbridled sympathy, which is what led to the New 52 take on her and Joker. The priceless irony in that is, despite the animated series being a children's cartoon, their relationship in the New 52 was way more comically abusive. I mean, just take Joker punching Harley square in the face in the graveyard and forcibly assaulting her in the shower.
And what I tell the young ladies to do is reach up with your little mouth and offer to kiss him. And when he kisses you back, you grab a hold of his lower lip and you bite down until your teeth meet.
It's almost offensive to compare Joker and Harley's relationship to real-life abusive relationships. I mean, you can do that with The Invisible Man starring Elizabeth Moss, as she's a respectable, insecure woman who's being gaslit to the point where everybody thinks she's crazy. But it's a little different when both partners are murderous psychopaths. It should be noted that Joker and Harley's relationship can be summed up as a codependent relationship, which is where one partner's unhealthy behaviors are being enabled by the other. So, yeah, Harley is an abuse victim, but she's equally as toxic as Joker due to her obsession with him. So, let's talk a little bit about Harley's original origin story in Mad Love, which I believe to be the perfect origin story for her, as it says so much more about her than it does Joker. So basically, Dr. Harley Quinzel was an intern at Arkham who treated the Joker, and Joker told her a presumably fake backstory about his abusive father as a child. Now, it'd be gullible but not irrational or dangerous to believe this story and say, well, at least I understand him better. Instead, she doesn't just take this backstory and run with it, she takes it, hops on a rocket, and flies to the goddamn moon with it, as she starts trying to clear Joker of any wrongdoing and treat Batman as the real enemy.
It soon became clear to me that the Joker, so often described as a raving, homicidal madman, was actually a tortured soul crying out for love and acceptance. A lost, injured child trying to make the world laugh at his antics. And there, as always, was the self-righteous Batman, determined to make life miserable for my angel.
Now, there's a brief scene in this episode where Harleen goes to Joker to ask about her recent feelings and how crazy they are. And while other people might see this as him further manipulating her, I just can't help but see it as a supremely dumb decision on Harleen's part, as shouldn't she be seeing a legitimate expert about these thoughts? I mean, going to a mass murderer for this is like asking a diabetic for dieting tips. So this might seem like a very strange and out of left field comparison, but as to sum up Harley's complex morality, I'd like to take a moment to compare her and Joker to an Australian crook named Peter Scully, who fled to the Philippines to make and distribute child exploitation and torture videos across the deep web. Scully had multiple young girlfriends who helped him produce these videos. However, his last one would feel sorry for 2 young girls that he was holding hostage, so she let them free, after which they helped Filipino authorities track down and arrest Scully, who received a life sentence. So the question is, does this sudden act of heroism make her a sweet, kindred soul like Harley supposedly is? No, because there were still many underage snuff films that she helped Scully produce. Hence why she was also held accountable. Duh! It's real easy to clear her of wrongdoing when you make it so Joker brainwashed her Patty Hearst style, but her original backstory made it so she was unambiguously evil, even if she did save Robin on numerous occasions. After all, Joker's never had a clear or definitive origin story, which consequently makes him an anomaly, but if his origin story was anything like The Killing Joke or Todd Phillips' Joker, he would be equally as sympathetic as Harley, if not more so. As a matter of fact, some of my all-time favorite Joker moments come from the animated series, where he legitimately competes with Harley as an entertaining villain.
No! Batman! Batman! How long have you been there?
Long enough. Put it down, Charlie.
You know he'll just escape again. This is the only way my family stays safe.
All right, you win. Take it easy. He has everything on his blasted family. Names, addresses, it's all there. You're no fun anymore, Charlie.
Hey, Joker.
Gotcha.
Would it help if I said I'm sorry? I'm really, 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 really sorry.
Fun. Who's for Chinese?
So yeah, that's pretty much it. Despite DC's many attempts to separate them since the New 52, it definitely feels like the association between Joker and Harley Quinn will live on as the years go by. I mean, just take a look at Lee Bermejo's works, The Adventures Continue, and White Knight, as well as just the general association between the two of them in the general public. No matter what happens, however, we can always enjoy their antics while still being able to say, oh, yeah, they're still horrible people, they just so happen to be really funny. Kinda like Bill Cosby.
Baby, you're the greatest.
Baby, you're the greatest.
Tonight's the night I'm coming alive. You've lived in my heart all of my life. You're a part of me, I'm a piece of you, irresistible you. What will we do? Searched my soul for the sake of letting go, but it's you I need, irresistible.